So this is the Orly Color Pass, the first one of 2025. I signed up again for this year, and apparently it is the 50th anniversary of Orly. And so they did this special Color Pass box. I don't know if all the Color Passes are going to be decades, because last year it seemed like they were doing elements, except that the fourth element turned out to be ski lodge. As we all know, the four elements are water, air, earth, and ski lodge. But anyway, this one is 1970s, and it comes in a pretty big box. And I took out the outer layer. Has this kind of rainbow iridescent going on. And here are the colors. I really do enjoy the detail that they put into the packaging for this. Like, they made a new font for it that looks very retro 70s, and the whole box together looks like a vinyl record collection. And these are the extras that came with the Color Pass this time. There's these cute happy face glitters. And this tool, it's a dotting tool on one side, and then I think that's wax to help pick up the glitters on the other side, and it comes in the tube to keep it safe. So let's move into swatching. First up is Shagin Wagon, and this one is very, very similar to my skin tone, so I don't really see myself wearing it just on its own as a manicure, but I could definitely use it for nail art, or if for some reason I want mannequin hands. You will see that I'm struggling a little bit on application. I do not think it's the fault of the polishes or the formula, because later when I used them for nail art, it was just fine. I think it's that it was very, very cold in the garage when I was swatching, and also my nails were particularly dry. So I think that the two together just made it difficult. But this is a very opaque, pretty typical Orly cream formula. I wore it in 2 coats, but I think a lot of people, if they wanted to, could probably get away with 1 coat. So here is Shagin Wagon in 2 coats. Next up is Hunky Dory, which is one of my favorite David Bowie albums. But in this case, it is a kind of mustardy, dark yellow cream formula. Once again, it's a pretty smooth formula. I think I was only struggling because of how cold and dry the atmosphere was when I was swatching, and also that my nails were just particularly dry that day. I did end up swatching this in 3 coats, which is not unusual for a yellow. Usually yellows are slightly less opaque. It just still looked a little streaky to me in the second coat. I think they did a very good job with their color palette, making it 70s themed. I do kind of wish that we had gotten a green in this collection, like either that kind of dark, dusty olive green, or maybe that kind of avocado-y green that seemed to be around a lot. If I had applied my coats just a little bit thicker, I probably could have gotten it opaque in 2 instead of 3. But anyway, here is Hunky Dory in 3 coats. Next up is Night Fever. So it's showing up on my camera a slightly different color than I was seeing in real life. It is a dark orange. It's not as bright as it's showing up on my phone screen. And I did this in 2 coats. It was one of the easier formulas. It did dry down to kind of an interesting texture. It almost looked like kind of plastic or vinyl. So I thought that was kind of cool. But of course with a glossy top coat, it'll just look like a regular cream. Here is Night Fever in 2 coats. So for the still, I tried to color correct it so that it looked more like what I was seeing in person. This is Bell Bottom Blues, and it's probably my favorite out of this collection. I just think it's a really pretty blue, and it has a very subtle shimmer. So the shimmer is very subtle, but I think it does give the finished look a bit more, I think, like depth. And you can also see it best in sunlight. And again, in this video, you see me kind of struggling with it, but I think it was really just the very dry, cold air that I was in at the time. I got it to full opacity in 2 coats. So here is Bell Bottom Blues in 2 coats. Personally, I think this is a very good winter to spring kind of transition color. Next up is Bohemian Child. I thought this one's really fun. It's a white crelly with black matte glitters, and it kind of looks like an egg. Crelly is kind of in between a cream formula and a jelly formula, so it's not fully opaque and it isn't meant to be, so that you can see the glitters a little bit better. I ended up swatching this out in 3 coats just to show how it would look, but I would probably wear this in 2 coats. I had a little bit of trouble evenly dispersing the glitters because I was pushing just a little too hard with my brush. Again, just because I was having so much trouble with my nails being so dry and the air being so cold and dry. It was like I was in a fridge. So here's the 3rd coat. I just kind of wanted to see how it would look. I think I prefer it in 2 coats, but the 3rd coat also did help me get more of those glitters. Here is Bohemian Child in 3 coats. Last up is Acid Trip, which is a glitter topper. You probably could get it to be full coverage, especially if you use the sponge-on method. Here I'm showing it over Shagin Wagon. This is Acid Trip over Hunky Dory. Acid Trip over Night Fever. Sorry, my camera is having a little trouble with the glitter. And on my pinky, I have Acid Trip on its own. I do it in 2 coats. And again, sorry, my camera is really having trouble focusing on the glitter. And here is Acid Trip over Shagin Wagon, Hunky Dory, Night Fever, and then on its own in 2 coats. So time for comparisons, and I like to do at least a manicure with the polishes that I'm swatching and reviewing, and this time I did some nail art for the emoji collab over on Instagram. The theme is good vibes. I'm like, oh, this is perfect, especially the happy face. And this flower does look like an egg on purpose. So anyway, let's get into the comparisons. So I'm starting with comparisons for Shagin Wagon. Oh, also, I don't know if I said it already, but I really like this typeface that they made that I'm pretty sure is only for this one because it does look very 1970s. Anyway, so for Shagin Wagon, I picked China Glaze's Dunescape Sand, which does have a shimmer in it, but the base color is very similar. And then Orly's Chalet Getaway from actually the last Color Pass, which I haven't done my swatch and review of. I started it and then I got really busy. So I'll probably do it. It'll just end up out of order. But the main difference between the China Glaze and Shagin Wagon is the gold shimmer in there. These ones are very close. This one I think has a little more brown kind of tint to it, and this one has a little bit more pink, which is kind of why it's so very close to my skin tone. For Hunky Dory, I chose Zoya's Honey and Essie's, let's see, what was it? Light and Fairy. So the Orly has just maybe a touch more orange in it, but the other two are also these very mustardy kind of yellows. I think the Zoya Honey is a bit closer. And for Night Fever, I thought that Sinful Colors Feel the Vibe was quite close. And in the bottle, Check In to Check Out look closer to me than they do on the swatch. This one's just a tad, I guess, dustier or just a little bit paler. The Essie, Check In to Check Out is just a little bit paler. But Feeling the Vibe and Night Fever are very, very similar. So for Bell Bottom Blues, I thought that Glossy, which I actually just watched a review of recently, and Essie's Tulips Touch were very similar. So Glossy has kind of a purplish shimmer, and Bell Bottom Blues has that, like, I guess green or aqua shimmer. It's just really, really subtle. It shows up on the nail in sunlight, but it doesn't really show up as well under like my ring light that I have right now. But I do really like this shade of blue on me. So Tulips Touch is just a little bit darker, and it's a cream without a shimmer. But once these two dry down, you can't really see the shimmer very much. So the base color is, I think, a bit closer to Glossy. And so for Bohemian Child, it kind of looked like eggshell to me. And so I thought it might be similar to Hatched, but they're quite different. I guess they have very similar vibes because they have those specks in the like creamy white base. But the Orly Bohemian Child, they're circle glitters, and these are just like irregular kind of like shreds or flakies, and Cert Colors Hatched. I didn't really have anything else quite like it to compare. I also didn't have anything really to compare Acid Trip to. Yeah, so Acid Trip's very unique in my collection. Oops, we had a little cat hair flyby. And, you know, I thought about getting some red glitters and gold glitters and layering them, but that's not really a comparison between two different nail polish shades. That would be attempting to make a dupe. So happy 50th birthday to Orly. and thank you for watching. Let me know what you think of the Color Pass, if you're getting it this year, what you thought of previous years, what you're hoping that they'll do next. I'm really hoping they do decades and that we'll get like an 80s, a 90s, and a 2000s. But we'll just have to wait and see. I'll talk to you next time. Bye.